Hi guys, Harbs Narbs here. Today I'm going to be doing a short video looking at why the city of Baldurs Gate is called Baldur's Gate and what happened to its founder. I'd just like to say a big thank you to my latest patron, Lulu Scaldo. I really appreciate your support. Okay, let's go. During this video, I will be using a number of sources, but primarily the 1992 supplement Golden Glory, the 2013 D&D Next adventure Murder in Baldur's Gate, and the 1990 Forgotten Realms adventures. Many centuries ago, there was an intrepid explorer called Balduran. Balduran was a seafarer and set off to a mysterious continent called Ankarome, which was situated to the west of Faerun and north of the continent named Maztica. Balduran was the first Faerunian to land on Ankarome, but the continent had been explored many times by the elves of Evermeet. When Balduran returned to Faerun, he described Ankarome as part of a strange and vast land, of which he found a great deal of wealth. He brought this wealth back to build a wall around a then relatively small town situated on the Sword Coast. This wall's primary purpose was to protect the town from raids by orcs and barbarians. Now, Balduran did not stick around for long and he set off for Ankarome for a second time, only to never return, but more on that later. So in Balduran's absence, what happened to this town which he had invested so much of his wealth in? The wall itself was actually built by many of the local farmers and traders who placed it around their own holdings, which meant that the actual port was relatively poorly defended. This gave these farmers and traders an advantage when taxing all carts coming up from the port to the walled city, which was safe for them from bandits and other naydoers. By this time, Balduran had already set off to Ankarome again and was not there to witness the extortion racket that was created. Ship captains and other colleagues of Balduran obviously did not like this tax or the position of the wall chosen by these traders, who were insisting that as the wall was built around their holdings, that is where the city started. The sea captains believed that the city should start from near the harbour, where the majority of trade entered the city through the southern gate, which the sea captains had coined as Baldur's Gate. Eventually, this spat turned into full-on insurrection against the ruling Baron-esque farmers and traders, and it resulted in the sea captains actually seizing the city, which in its totality became known as Baldur's Gate. The foremost senior captains turned over their ships to younger sailors so that they could instead focus on running the city. Initially, they called themselves dukes as a joke, but this turned out to be rather effective when dealing with rulers from other cities and towns, as they were titles that had a recognisable meaning. Grand was also eventually added to the title, and so the city was ruled by 4 Grand Dukes. We can see the event regarding the sea captains and the issue of the southern gate represented in the flag of the city. This bit shows the southern gate that was disputed, and the ship represents the city's role as a trading hub. According to Murder in Baldur's Gate, the calm sea symbolises the gate's intent to be a peaceful power, and the clear blue sky represents optimism about the city's future. We can see this flag during the opening menu screen on Baldur's Gate 3 on this washed up boat. So we established how the city got its name, but what did happen to Balduran? Grand Duke Elton was a Duke of Baldur's Gate in the 1300s DR. You may remember Duke Elton from Baldur's Gate 1. He was in charge of the Flaming Fist, however he wasn't just in charge of them, he was actually their founder. According to Golden Glory, Elton was always fascinated by Balduran, and after hearing that the Golden Legion, led by a man called Cordell, had conquered Maztica on behalf of Arm, Elton was keen to try out the lands to the west for himself. Cordell had actually conquered Maztica, but his original goal was to reach the eastern land of Karatur by sailing westward across the trackless sea. The conquering of Maztica largely came about when Cordell came across Maztica and ended up leading several campaigns in order to dominate the natives there, forgetting his original goal of reaching Karatur. Wait, this sounds awfully familiar. Anyway, after Cordell's successes, Elton set out with the intention of possibly replicating Cordell's success and hopefully also finding out what happened to Balduran. The expedition to Ankarome was led by 4 men: Scar, who was also in the original Baldur's Gate, Belan, Desidrak, and Yulimtul. Under their command were 500 Flaming Fist mercenaries. They brought with them an extraordinary amount of equipment as well as 200 horses. The expedition set off from a group of islands known as Lantan in the Trackless Sea, and if I was to sum up the expedition in one word, it would be disastrous. 20 ships left from Lantan heading to the port of Helmsport in Maztica, which was one of the settlements established by Cordell a few years earlier in 1361. However, most of the ships became riddled with disease, and 3 of the ships sank entirely due to a storm. One of these ships was a designated hospital ship and contained most of the expedition's priests. These priests were the only ones keeping the disease at bay, and once this ship went down, it would have spiraled out of control. When the ships landed at Helmsport, they recruited more men and headed up the coast to the north of Mazdaka in order to observe the coast of Ankarome. The Flaming Fist used 15 ships to transport 340 people and 150 horses, but were met with extreme hostility by a group of native Sawagin in the realm of the undersea nation called Itzkali. The Sawagin destroyed a third of the Fist's ships, causing a further setback. If it wasn't for a terrific counterattack led by Scar, then the other ships would have also been destroyed. Fortunately, they managed to escape. Eventually, Scar and the other Flaming Fist managed to move further north until they came across a small wooden fort. An old ship's log found in the fort signified that this was likely the final resting place of Balduran. The Fist concluded that Balduran and his men were likely killed by a vicious tribe of elves. Whilst investigating the wooden fort, the Flaming Fists were attacked by large whale-like beasts, forcing them once again into a fighting retreat. Less than 100 members survived the retreat, but rather than running with their tails between their legs all the way back to Baldur's Gate, they set up Fort Flame at the mouth of a river that opens into a large bay, which they have named Baldurs Bay, thereby officially continuing Balduran's legacy away from Baldur's Gate. Belan stayed on Ankarome in Fort Flame with several men, and therefore the Flaming Fist, Faerunians, had successfully colonised this mysterious land, although it is fair to say that the loss of life to achieve this relatively small victory was great. Scar returned to Baldur's Gate and was pleased to inform Elton of their relative success. In the 1300s, the Fist were then based in Baldur's Gate. Chult had several small bases in Tethir, and then also Ankarome, which means that if this event comes to pass in Baldur's Gate 3, the Fist at least have reinforcements from other areas. Belan stayed in contact with Baldur's Gate through arcane methods. This was the only suitable way to stay in contact given the treacherous lands that Fort Flame was surrounded by. The last update we had about Fort Flame was in the Lands of Intrigue Book 2, when the following is said. Strangely, elves who arrive here from Faerun cannot communicate with the wild elves of this land, who show no willingness to talk with anyone. And the land surrounding Fort Flame was described by Wuxel Silvertongue, a halfling led by a debt of honour to Duke Elton, as a mosquito-infested torture land. So it was no picnic holding this land, but at least Balduran had somewhat achieved his goal, even in death. So you know now the origin of the city and its namesake. Balduran unfortunately never witnessed the established base of Fort Flame, but his legacy lived on within the Flaming Fist, who were trying desperately to tame the wild lands of Ankarome. Interestingly, we can find Balduran's logbook in Baldur's Gate Tales of the Sword Coast, but this actually isn't canon. Anyway, thanks for watching guys. If you enjoyed this video then do please give me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!